I figured I'd just bring the camera out here and record some content, and I hope this had value to you. And so I want to talk to you about why we may have experiences of getting caught in cycles of like unpleasant feelings. There's actually a term for this. It's called the emotional refractory period, which can also be for positive feelings. It tends to be more for negative. And so what ends up happening is that there are different parts of our brain, of our consciousness, of our nervous system. There's something called the reticular activating system. This is the filter of what hits our conscious awareness. Like 98% or even more of everything that hits our senses, we more or less never become conscious of, and certainly not in real time, right? Because it would just be too overwhelming. We couldn't function. So the job of the reticular activating system is to decide what we do and don't end up paying attention to. So if you've ever bought a new car or a pair of shoes you're really stoked about, then suddenly you notice it like everywhere, like everyone has it. Like, how did this happen? Did everyone just decide this at one time, so mine want to be novel? No. It's become emotionally relevant to you, and your unconscious mind's fixated on it because it thinks it's important, and so you start noticing it everywhere. Well, the most emotionally relevant thing by default in the nervous system is survival. Number one job of the unconscious mind, which is also your autonomic nervous system, is keep you alive until tomorrow. It is literally that simple. So things that provoke stress imply danger according to that system's map of how the world is. So let's say that something really jarring happens. You know, there's been a lot of that the last few years. I'd say more than the average in a lot of ways, right? Well, now we've been habituated to these different stressful, jarring experiences. And the body is a little bit more like, oh, what's coming next, right? So that reticular activating system is extra filtering for danger, extra more so, even though it's one of its biggest things. Then on top of that, we have a secondary layer, the emotional refractory period. When there's a strong emotion, it's like think of it like a living thing, like all living things that wants to stay alive. Well, how does it do that? Well, in reality, an emotion on its own, that energy has like maximum about a 90-second lifespan before it dissipates, right? So for it to perpetuate, it needs to have something to feed on, which is more stimuli in the same general frequency of experience. So imagine, a time that you had gotten into a fight with someone, maybe a significant other or a good friend, and even like when it was done, even when things were theoretically cleared up for like the next 15, 20, 30 minutes, like no matter what they did, you still felt like they were being a dick, right? Well, there's a reason for that. It's that energy is perpetuating, and that filter is fixating on all the details. At the same time, it's also filtering out things that would be in contrast. So they might have done something really nice, and rather than seeing it as that, you saw them as being manipulative or something, which, the next day looking back, you're like, why would I have thought that? That's why, and the filter is still running, right? So we have these processes and experiences, and they're designed as far as like what they're for, in the bigger picture, to keep us alive. You go back 100,000 years, there was a lot less social complexity and a lot more immediate danger. And it was all about just immediate survival. We're still built for that by default. So when we understand, okay, I still have that nervous system, and until I learn how to update it's like updating your operating system, when your phone updates its OS or something. Until we get those patches in and we rewire that stuff consciously into the unconscious, there's going to be a lot of that kind of activity. So when you understand, hey, it's not that you're doing something wrong, and it's also not that you can't do better. It's just that this is a phenomena and it's kind of natural, and you're not stuck with it. However, you have to approach it in a way that works to shift it. Realize, okay, I'm not powerless, and there's a reason for this, and I don't have to make such a big deal of it. The more that you have awareness, the more choice you have. Without awareness, there is no choice. With awareness comes options. So if you feel yourself in that kind of post-triggered state, realize, okay, my body's doing a thing. It's called the fight or flight nervous system is the nickname for it, or you have the sympathetic nervous system is the proper name for it, right? That's what makes all the blood rush to your limbs and kind of shuts off your thinking brain and puts you into that fight, flight, run, hide energy, right? There we go. That, for a second, my body was like, what is that noise? And I felt that. I felt my heart jump, right? It just triggered that primal instinct. Is there danger? What's happening? No, there's a guy training a bunch of kids, I think, for cross country or something, and we're over in a park, and he has his whistle and he's yelling to let them know to come back up the stairs, right? Not a big deal. However, it's the conscious choice to say, hold on, that didn't mean anything. It was just a thing. My nervous system picked up, oh, It's nothing, just a little blip on the radar. That's nothing. We train ourselves to do that, even with things that might be arguably annoying or problematic. Usually they're not that big a deal outside of that moment. Is it going to make a giant difference in my life tomorrow? Probably not. But in that moment, how am I responding to it? So when we practice that awareness, we say, okay, I'm feeling kind of lit up about this. I'm going to choose to leave the room, not angrily, not because they did something wrong or I did something wrong, but just realizing, hey, my body's like a little overactivated, and it is more loving to me and anybody else involved as well to just go and chill. Not because anyone did anything wrong, maybe they did or didn't, but it's irrelevant, just because it is the healthier, more loving towards myself choice. I can choose to take slow, deep breaths. Now I'm going to be very specific. Slow, deep breaths really would be better explained as breathing in slowly, holding it for a couple counts, and breathing out even more slowly. When we breathe out more slowly than we breathe in, it causes the heart rate to slow, causes the mind to come down, brings us back out of that sympathetic fight or flight nervous system into the parasympathetic. And so we can actually control our physiology. Breathe in slow and deep, stand up straight, stretch, take a walk. And as much as this might sound like cliche ideas, it makes a big difference. You wait out that emotional refractory period and reset. And everything tends to work out better that way. And by doing this, we are retraining our body to have better outcomes. And over time, it really compounds, and suddenly we feel a lot more empowered, a lot more enlightened, a lot more satisfied with our outcomes. And I can at least speak for myself and other people who I've talked to who have made this a practice. It's pretty great. So I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you next time.